My name is Melissa Fausz, and I am Manager of State and Local Government Affairs and Public Policy for YouTube.
You can go ahead and start if you would like.
Sure. So just as a starter, what does safer internet youth experiences mean to you today?
Oh, safer internet youth experiences to me means approaches to creating user experiences on YouTube that are informed by evidence and are appropriate to all stages of development for young people.
I love that. I would like to know how you kind of work to strike the balance between creativity and protecting child safety on YouTube, whether that's tools or just various outreach programs.
Yeah, it's an incredibly important question. I think part of how we think through creativity and balancing that with what's developmentally appropriate for kids is by really thinking through what types of content make sense for which stages of life that a kid is in, and making sure that we have a user experience that kind of matches that moment for them. So for younger children, we have the YouTube Kids app that has a lot of curated experiences just for younger children. The bar to have your content as a creator be able to be featured on the Kids app is very high. And so we're very thoughtful about making sure that at critical moments in kids' life that they're being exposed to content that is entertaining, but that is also enriching. And then as kids get older, we want to encourage them to be able to explore and develop as teens in a way that's a little bit more open and allows them to be active participants in their experience on YouTube. And so we have different tools for that age range, including a more kind of partnership model of supervised accounts with parents and kids through Google Family Link, as well as just having restricted mode accounts where it's just a normal YouTube account, but for under 18 users, it just restricts certain types of content that are considered too mature.
I like that how you have like almost tailored like brackets, because there's such a distinct difference between a YouTube kid and then a YouTube preteen, and that difference can't be understated.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah, for sure. And just add on to that, what have you found most effective in engaging youth to understand what those brackets kind of look like? What is the best way that you found to really hear from the youth perspective?
Yeah, so we kind of take this approach in a couple different ways. First, that direct connection with youth and sort of their stated preferences and needs, which we get through a variety of mechanisms, from market research to our partnerships with third-party organizations that are youth-led and youth-driven. Partnerships with ConnectSafely, of course, but then we actually just launched a partnership today with the JED Foundation, which is very focused on youth mental health. We're rolling out a suite of videos with some of our biggest content creators on the platform, talking about issues from loneliness to navigating breakups to other mental health topics. But then we also try and take a really strong evidence-based approach where we're getting that direct feedback from teens, but we're also considering what the research is telling us. So we do have a youth advisory council that's made up of independent experts in the fields of child psychology, development, to make sure that our design is appropriate to their needs as well as their wants.
That's great. How do you sort of collaborate in your role being based in DC and also being in this role with state and local governments to kind of incorporate youth safety into the conversation? And then right now in this moment, what's the tone? Are you getting more pushback than acceptance, or vice versa?
Can you guys pause it? I think they're looking for me outside. I'm going to keep this running.
Yeah.
Are you guys okay for just like a few minutes?
We're good.
Right, let me just sneak out.
No worries.
Sure thing.
Right back. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Multiple directions. We're recording. You guys are amazing.
Okay. Yeah, run that by me one more time.
Okay, yeah. I was just kind of wondering how, in your role and being based in DC, how you collaborate with state and local governments to influence youth safety as it pertains to social media into conversations of policy. And then right now with this tone, are you being met with more pushback than acceptance, or vice versa?
I think it's a really healthy dialogue that we have. It's a really healthy dialogue that we have with state and local officials. I think that they're very passionate about this issue, and they're doing their jobs. They're representing the people that elected them into office, and they're looking out for their constituents. And that's something that, as a state affairs professional, I respect above all else. And so I think to the extent that we get pushback from state officials, it's helpful pushback in that it requires us to think through, okay, what does our product design look like? What are our policies? How is that impacting their constituents? And how can we, kind of find a way to bridge the gap to something that's technologically possible for us at this current moment at YouTube, but also addresses the valid concerns that we're getting. The thing that has always attracted me, I've always only ever wanted to do state and local government affairs. And the thing that's so attractive to me about that is that I find that elected officials who are closest to their communities have such precise insights into what's going on. And so, while obviously the work that's getting done at the national level and the federal government is very important, and what's happening globally too in other countries, I think state and local government is where you kind of get that sort of canary in the coal mine of like, what's coming, what are they seeing on the ground, especially with this sort of nascent generation.
I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Have you ever had an instance where a policy that you implemented didn't have the consequence you expected, and how did you kind of navigate dealing with that?
Yeah, this happens all the time, especially at the state and local level. And I think what it really comes down to is there's sort of two phases to policymaking. There's the crafting of the language itself, there's getting it passed, put into statute, and then there's the implementation piece of it. And I think sometimes it's very easy to get over-focused on one side of the coin or the other. And it's usually when that happens that you sort of see that breakdown of like somebody's got a really great idea for a novel policy that's going to be super helpful to users on social media or what have you, and go through the effort of getting the bill passed and come to find out it's not workable from a regulatory standpoint. Maybe it doesn't stand up to constitutional rigor and can't be implemented, or it's implemented in a way that doesn't meet the intent of the original language. So this is a thing that happens all the time. It's astute of you guys to point it out, but that's something that I think we constantly have to be on the lookout for, is not just thinking about like, how do we get like a bill across the finish line or get changes made at the legislative step, but what does this then look like in practice?
Yeah, that it definitely does seem like a challenging process on all fronts. In the panel, there was a lot of talk about proactivity versus reactivity, and I kind of want to wonder, does the trends, the implications, and potentially the dangers of social media run faster than the policy that is able to defend it? Or do you think that right now there are steps in place to get in front of that?
That is a really excellent question. I think it's always a struggle with, especially when we talk about regulatory frameworks, the speed at which technology is moving. It is extremely hard for policymakers to keep up with that. One of the questions asked during the panel, to your point, was about how we as companies are handling the rate at which technology is developing and the risks and dangers that creates, like generative AI being used as part of misinformation and scamming, all of that sort of stuff. And really for us at Google and YouTube, part of the answer to that question is we have to be on the forefront of technology in order to understand how technology is going to get used in malicious ways and how to protect our users against that threat. And that's information that it's then incumbent on us to share with policymakers too, about like, here is an approach that we think is feasible from a technical standpoint, that kind of meets the challenge that we're seeing. So for instance, generative AI, like AI is one of the tools that we use to identify AI generated content, right? And we're kind of doing the same thing in terms of child safety on the platform, using signals that we already get from users, including their watch history, how long their account has been active, and using machine learning to identify with more accuracy and fidelity who is under 18 and making sure that we're tailoring the experience to them.